we inhale and we exhale.
Ooh.
Breath work is really important,
Yeah.
to our wellness practice. But if we think about holding both, our grief might be the inhale of our experience, and our joy might be the ability to exhale and release.
Welcome to Journey to Joy Live, a podcast to promote wellness, resilience, and inspire joy. Be empowered to balance your mental, physical, financial, aspirational, and social health while providing mental health awareness and breaking down the stigma of mental illness in the Black community. I'm your host, Dr. Joy, and I'm here to help you transform life's challenges into opportunities for joy. Let's begin the journey together. Hello, everyone. We're on a Monday today, and it is episode 99, Finding Joy in the Midst of Grief, When Joy and Pain Exist Side by Side. And I have Dr. Rae Lundy here. She is a psychologist, wellness strategist, as well as speaker. She's all over the place. You want to tell us more about who you are?
Hey everyone. So I am Dr. Lundy, but I'm also known as the self-care doc. I
Hey.
am a licensed clinical psychologist, an entrepreneur business owner, and I really focus on making sure that self-care is not a cliche, that people know that it's more than getting your hair done, your nails done, taking bubble baths. Those things are good too. But I've committed the past years, I guess started the self-care doc in 2018,
Oh.
and committed to making sure that folks know what it truly means to be holistically well and how self-care is an integral part of that. And so I'm excited because our conversation tonight, I think, is going to incorporate a lot of the work that I've done around self-care, but also a lot of the personal work I've had to do around grief. So
Mm.
yeah, I think this is going to be a good conversation, and I'm so glad that you are allowing me to share this space with you.
Well, thank you for your times. I know you're a busy doc, so I really appreciate having you come here. All my guests who come on is absolutely amazing. You also work with college kids too.
Yeah, yeah. My day job is the director for counseling services at Georgia State University. In addition to that, I also oversee our student victim assistance area as well as
Mm.
psychiatry services. So,
Mm.
the areas where students are seeking support from both an emotional perspective, they may also need medication management, but also students who've experienced some trauma. And so, again, to tie back into tonight's conversation, there's a lot of grief that we have to sit with our students and kind of walk them through. So I guess I have a wealth of information that I can share, and I hope your listeners find our conversation meaningful.
Me too. And I have to remind people that I recently published my second book, Inspire Joy for the Wife Mom Boss, and the order has come in, so it's no longer on pre-order status. You can order it and get it within a few days. It's $15.49 on my website, drenjoylife.com, until the end of the May, and it's going to go up a little bit. And if you want to get the Enjoyno along with the Wife Mom Boss, the Joy Bundle is $45 on my website. You can also find it on Kindle as well as Amazon right there. So we are going to jump right into talking about joy in the midst of grief because a lot of people feel like when it comes to grief, it's like grief and that's it. I'm down, I'm sad, I'm stressed, I'm angry, I'm numb, all the things you might experience. And they're just like, joy, what? And I'm always talking about joy on Journey to Joy Live as like not a feeling, but as something that you can choose and something that like a state of being, like a resistance, a resilience that you can have despite what's going on. So we really want to get into this. So why do you think it's so hard for us to give ourselves permission to feel joy while grieving? And how can we begin to do it anyway?
Yeah. I think it's a layered, set of reasons why it's so difficult.
Hmm.
I think when we say we, I want to name that I'm coming from my own lived experience as being an African American woman,
Mhm.
from a person who was raised in a culture where being strong, being superwoman,
Yep,
vulnerability is weakness. You know, grab yourself by your bootstraps, so to speak, and
exactly.
you just keep it moving. And so I think, as with many mental health concerns and mental health in general, not having the permission to
Mhm,
say that I'm not okay. And so I think that is a large contributing factor for
mhm.
folks who struggle with grief from a cultural perspective. Um, I think another thing is that people feel guilty about having
Mm,
joy. Um,
mhm.
when they're having moments of grief or something or
Yeah,
someone if they've lost. Because I also want to name that, we often only think about grief as death, but there are all types of grief and types of loss.
yeah,
And because there are different types of losses, I think we tend to judge ourselves for how we
yeah.
should be feeling. Um, and we compare, well, you know, I'll take a point of vulnerability myself to
Mhm,
model what I mentioned about not being the superwoman and it's okay.
mhm.
I'll take a point and say that my father, about a year ago, my father was he passed away and after a
Mm,
battle with dementia. And I
mm.
was in conversation with a friend recently who unexpectedly lost her mother.
Oh, yeah,
And my father, I cared for him as his primary caregiver for about a year and a
and
half.
that's hard.
It's hard. But that friend, in terms of this idea of comparison that we do and why we can't we struggle with the holding joy, that friend, she asked, she said, "Do you think it's worse to lose someone suddenly,
Yeah, that
lose
question.
someone over time?"
That's
And
hard.
I responded to her by saying that I don't think it's a fair comparison.
Yeah.
Both of those things are
Mhm,
really, really hard.
mhm.
And I want to give her, I was talking to her, I said, I want to give you permission to feel exactly what you're feeling. And she knew
Exactly.
and saw me walking with all the pain. And I give myself permission to feel exactly what I was feeling as
Mm,
well. And so, in that desire to not compare,
yeah.
I think also this sense that while I was dealing with that loss from of my father, I had to also say that I could hold multiple emotions at the same time.
Right.
Uh, I could hold the fact that there was a tremendous loss and there was a tremendous sadness, but hold at the same exact time that my father was no longer in
Yeah.
pain, that the memories of him still persist
Mhm.
and that the moments that made me smile that I have a right? And it's a privilege that that I am able to smile about that too. So holding both things
Yeah.
at the same time and also not comparing or judging myself for how how my situation is and turned
Compared
out
to
compared
somebody
to
else.
another person's.
Yeah, and it's really easy to judge yourself, especially with it's usually the scenario where you say you're have been caring for that person for quite some time. You knew they were gonna die eventually, and it's been a long time. Some people might feel relief when they die, and some people might
Yes.
feel that judgment because it's like,
Ooh.
"Wow, how dare I feel the relief?"
Oh.
And that's okay if you feel relief because as a self-care doc, I'm sure you can admit that it's really difficult on yourself and you're so focused on that person that's dying that you're not even caring for yourself. So it really does feel like a relief, and that's okay.
Yeah, you're calling me out on that one. I struggled and I can name that I was exhausted. And when my father passed away, I felt ashamed that I felt a sense of relief that I could get some rest.
Ashamed.
Yeah,
Wow. And you said that you could get rest.
that
Oh,
I
my
could get rest because I was there was an uneasiness and never knew what call I would get. Never knew, every time the phone rang, I wondered if it was going to be that what next? He fallen and broken a hip, he had injured him. So there were numerous things that were happening. And not to mention, as we think about your listeners who may also be going through grief,
Mhm.
the thing about grief and any of our life experiences, they're not happening in isolation. So I'm talking about all of the caregiving responsibilities or the grief that I had. But on top of that, I was in a new job, a new role. I
Mhm.
had moved from a new
Mm.
city.
Life
I
doesn't
was
stop.
Life doesn't stop, right? And so that's another reason why, back to your question, we definitely want to give ourselves permission to hold multiple truths at the same time because while you might be grieving in one area, there may be another area of your life that is thriving and that is excelling. And you get to appreciate that part of your life, even if this other area at the time that other area is not thriving and there's sadness there. So holding
Yeah.
both of those.
For sure, and for me, because I lost my dad almost about 3.5 years ago, and I was the opposite, so I was like your friend where it was sudden, we didn't hear from him all day, my sister went over there, and we kinda had a feeling, so we had maybe several hours of, like, preparing, like, "We haven't heard from him, something's going on," and of course, he was found dead in his house,
Yeah.
and so it's kinda like you just react, right? And you don't have that true preparation, but giving yourself permission to hold joy and pain at the same time is definitely very important. We're actually just talking about this, episode 96, May the Joy Be With You. My co-host, Dr. Anissa Shomo, she had just lost her father, and she was just talking about just that, and she was posting her birthday had happened a few days after, she was posting, "Celebrating my birthday and grieving at the same time," and she posted that very, unapologetically. So
Yeah.
we've gotta give ourselves grace for our feelings and reactions.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. So we may have gotten to this, but can you share what it means to emotionally hold both? Like just to be able to contain both, to sit with joy and pain at the same time and without that guilt.
Yeah. As I was thinking about our conversation tonight, I was um a kind of a metaphor came to mind about this idea of um holding both at the same time and what it really I thought about the idea that we inhale and we exhale.
Mm.
Breath work is really important, to
Yeah.
our wellness practice. But if we think about holding both, our grief um, might be the inhale of our
Mhm.
experience, and our
Mm.
joy might be the ability to exhale and release. And so I invite those who are listening to think about it as, the ins, the out, the rhythm, the ups, the down, the because I think our brains maybe may find it hard to say like literally how are you doing both at the exact same time. And
Yeah.
the truth is it's a moment by moment experience, the grief process. And we know years ago we think about Kubler-Ross's stages of grief, and one of the challenges
Mm.
that people have with that stage model is that like
Yeah.
it's not so linear. And I think
Mm-mm.
where the research has gone around grief is that there isn't necessarily this mapped out pattern, but
Right.
again, that metaphor I give you in terms of like the inhale, like, oh my gosh, in this moment, I'm crying. And then on my exhale, literally it can happen that quickly. On my exhale, I can hold my child and just snuggle with my daughter or my child. Or for me, in my instance, I have a dog, and I actually got the puppy right around the time my father's health was declining.
Mm.
And I'll never forget, literally I'm there sitting there crying tears after the morning my father passed, and my puppy at the time chewing on everything in the
Yeah.
house, pissing me off. I was so upset. I'm like, if you chew one more thing, and then, just kind of licked my hand and was like being all cute. And then in that same moment with tears,
Yeah.
as I exhaled, I was able to have some joy to say, you know what, there's love here.
Mhm.
There's love here. So I give that visual for folks.
That's a good one.
Yeah, we talked about, like, holding both at the same time, but I guess if you think about it from this idea of this moment by moment, it can change, and I think the key in all of that is to give yourself permission,
That's
to
true.
move in between those states.
Yeah, and I really love that example because a lot of us feel like we're going crazy when it's like we're angry 1 second, then mad, then happy and laughing hysterically, and we're just like, "Well, am I bipolar all of a sudden?" And it's just like, "No, no, no, you're none of that, and you're definitely not crazy." I don't use the word crazy
Yeah, same.
when it comes to diagnosing, and it just shows that, yeah, we're gonna experience multiple emotions, so breathing in that grief that you're having, you're experiencing the world, and grief is in that world that you're taking in, but letting out joy despite
Yeah.
what you're having. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really good. So, I mean, clearly there's some misconceptions when it comes to grief. Even just mentioning like the stages of grief, because some people think they go through fast, or some people think they go
Mm,
through every stage, or that it's
mhm,
elongated. What are some of the
mhm.
misconceptions that people have about grief, especially in Black communities, that make healing even harder?
Yeah. I guess one of the misconceptions could go with how we should be moving through the grief process.
Mhm.
Um, often in Black communities, the idea is that and this is a good thing, you should pray. You should seek your spiritual wellness uh, components, like whether that's talking to a pastor, you
Mhm.
know, when we think about how we honor the dead in our kind of Western culture, there is usually a church service, and then there's usually praying over the grave, and so all of those things
Mhm.
are appropriate to do as you feel comfortable. But I think the misconception is that that's the only way that you can move through grief, and if you are experiencing those moments of sadness, that somehow you haven't prayed hard enough, or your faith isn't, you're not leaning
Yeah.
into your faith and trusting that God knows best. And having an emotion that feels contrary to maybe what you tell yourself you should be feeling,
Mhm.
having that emotion does not mean that you've done something wrong. So
Correct.
I just want to give folks permission that our feelings are indicators. They're messengers to us.
Mhm.
They let us know when we need to. So even if you think about depression, for example, um,
Yeah.
and the word depressed literally means to slow down, or like the coming down of something. So if you
Mhm.
think about it, like grief is a sadness, but it is inviting us to pause. It is inviting
Mm.
to be reflective. It is our I believe it is our,
Good.
emotional self. It is the way that our emotions help us to counteract our culture, which tells us to keep going,
Exactly.
to not stop. And the truth is, we have permission to stop. In fact, you know, there are many traditions and cultures where, they change the color of their clothes,
Mhm.
they cover themselves,
Yep.
and they give this extended period of time where you can grieve because I think one of the misconceptions that we have is that grief should be quick, that we should get over.
Correct. Yes. Yes,
And
that's
so
huge.
not only is it that we have the opportunity to find other ways of support outside of the spirituality perspective,
Mhm.
um, but this idea that I'll get over it quickly, and that
That's who.
says who? And
There's no
and if
deadline.
there is no deadline. I think that's
Yeah.
a great way to say it.
And
There is no.
will you ever get over it? Because it's okay
mm,
to say that too.
you
And
know.
I'm realistic with patients, and I don't say it to be, like, pessimistic or a
Mhm.
Debbie Downer, but you may not ever get over it, and that's alright, especially for people who've been with their spouse, literally married with them majority of the time that they've even more of the time than they've ever been single, right? And
Yeah.
then they lose their spouse and
Mhm.
then, "Oh, I'll get
Mhm.
over it." You actually
Mhm.
won't, and that's okay.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I it This idea that if I'm not feeling better by a certain time, then something is wrong with me is something I want us to let go of. a kind of a common statement that I've heard around grief, and this is not psychiatry or psychology, but
Yeah.
this is Instagram wisdom, right? I'm going to use some Instagram wisdom here, where it talks about grief being the extent to your grief being compared to the extent of the love that you have for the person. And I think
Mm.
when I hear that, I connect with your idea of, okay, you may not ever get over it. And I connect this idea that my love was so extensive for this person, to think that I would ever not want this person, not want to think or care about this
Yeah.
person, that in fact, that is the opposite of what I would want, because my love was so deep for this person.
You want
So
to keep
so
them.
you want to keep it.
Yeah,
You want to
yeah.
keep it, and you get to keep it. I think something we haven't talked about, though,
Mhm.
um, and I don't know if this falls under a misconception, but this idea
Mhm.
that I think, in addition to there being different types of grief, so you have non-death losses, you have,
Right.
death
Losing a
losses.
job, divorce.
Yep, life changes. I think, though,
Mhm.
you also have different types of attachments, connections, and love.
Mhm.
So if you never get over your first love, let's say you lost a partner and then you lost them to death, that they died,
Mhm.
um, there's not to say that you won't ever love again, but that love might
Right.
be different.
That's that
And
same
that,
concept of joy and
yeah,
grief existing,
at
love and
the
grief
same
existing. Yeah.
time. Yeah, yeah. You will always still hold, there is no other living person that could ever take your loved one's place, because we are all uniquely different. Our DNA, our makeup, even if you're twins, like, there is some part of you that's different, and having another love outside of your loss is
Mhm.
possible. And
Mhm.
so, giving ourselves permission for that as well.
And speaking of that, because 'cause we've been talking about giving yourself time for grace, letting you know that it's okay to it might take several years, you
Mm.
might take all that time, but the opposite is okay too, because people might
Mm.
judge themselves if they do move on quickly, and
Yep.
they do get
Yep.
married within a
Yeah.
few months.
Mhm. Mhm.
People outside forces are judging them, or they might judge themselves. Hey, whatever works for you. Now, if that next relationship is suffering because of you're heavily grieving so much, that's another story, but if it's healthy and you're getting the help you need, taking care of yourself and
Yeah.
hey,
You
there's no
said you said
judgment.
something really key. You said if it's healthy. I think when I'm working with my clients, we talk a lot about, again, what is normal, and you can't, I'm not gonna necessarily say that any behavior that my clients do, I'm not gonna go immediately to thinking that, okay, that's not healthy. What I want us to do, I want us to look at, where is this coming from? If you are making a choice to get into a relationship after you've lost a significant relationship, where is this coming because you are trying to compensate for that love loss? And then if that's the case, then it might not be as healthy. This might be premature. But if this is coming from a place of, you've dealt with,
Mhm.
you've taken some time, you've processed those feelings, and now you have found a different, new, unique experience and love.
Yeah.
uh then then that's very possible. But it's very clear that we all want to make sure that we're checking in with ourselves, tapping into what feels healthy. Um, but I absolutely believe it's okay to take as much time as you need, or as little time as you need, but as long as it's healthy.
Especially, I mean, for those who lose a spouse, they've been married to them 63 years and they themselves feel like they only have a few years left. And they kind of feel like, hey, let's go ahead and move on. Because anyway, why not
Yeah,
spend the rest of your life happy with somebody that you
yeah.
just met than the other way around being depressed
Well,
all the
I think, we make up a whole bunch of rules about what we should and shouldn't be doing.
There it
And
is.
it's those rules that we tell ourselves that sometimes get us caught in our heads and the inner critic. Um, but I think love, attachment, all of those things are really precious. And if you're able to connect with someone, again, and if it's healthy, I know that as all of your listeners are kind of tuning in, the idea, especially in our field, we're wanting people to thrive and to be
Mhm.
healthy, and
Yeah.
without that judgment. And so, um, if you're listening and you've been going through some grief, I think I want to make sure that folks know it's okay to take that step, I can name and from a place of vulnerability that one of the things that happened when my father passed away is at the exact same. Oh, it was a double whammy, a triple whammy. So
Mm.
I had a relationship breakup.
Mm.
I had an aunt who was close to me, much like a mother, and then
Mhm.
my dad died, all within
Wow.
60 days of one another,
Oh,
all within 60 days. And so, we're not just on here saying, give yourself permission to grieve. All of that happened. All of those things happened more than a year ago, and I had not allowed myself to date since then. So I'm I'm taking the leap,
gotta
and I
rebuild yourself,
trying to
yeah.
yeah. It took me a while to rebuild
Yeah,
myself, but um I'm trying to model for folks. I'm trying to hold my joy and my grief at the same time. So, we'll see how this journey
yeah,
goes with me trying to, allow myself. I think I'm at a place now where, um, I think I can hold the joy while still honoring my father's life and my aunt's life. Yeah, her
for sure.
anniversary of her death just passed too.
Coming up,
So
oh, just pass. Now I was gonna ask you if you're comfortable, like, any specifics that you have used to kinda get that joy back. You did
mm, y
mention not dating for the whole year. That's
yep.
one very specific thing.
Mhm.
Other things because you obviously out here still doing things, you a boss, you're awesome, so but we don't see what's behind the scenes. So what did
Yeah.
you do to keep it together
Mhm.
or maybe not keep it together?
No, you know what? I hadn't planned on talking about that part. I'll be really honest. I didn't keep it together
Yeah.
for a minute, and um, mm, wasn't well. I for the
If you're
first time.
comfortable.
I feel comfortable sharing that for years I'm the person who takes care of other people,
Yeah.
and I would say you know depression had been there with me.
Yeah.
And I resisted taking medication. And so the thing I did for myself to manage the grief was I got back into a really healthy exercise regimen. I made sure to keep um my appointments with my therapist,
Mhm.
and um I took some medication that I had not ever taken consistently, and I have been consistently taking it. And I was humbled because it's so easy to tell other people what they should be doing for themselves.
Correct.
It's so
Yeah,
easy. But your question was,
yeah.
how did I hold it together, or keep it together, or not? And so at a point, it was so funny because on my job, I got a performance evaluation while all of this was going on, and I got an excellent performance evaluation.
Mhm.
But the fact that I knew I was not doing so well, like I was high functioning. I was really high functioning, but I knew that I was crumbling on the inside. So I took those measures, so the exercise, the therapy, and medication, and I can say that it has been, and taking the time again from the dating, kind of pausing on those things,
Yeah.
and I am probably the healthiest that I've been, and it's not to say that life is not lifing. Life is lifing in all the
Yeah, it's still
ways,
life.
but I truly had to engage in the same self care that I tell other folks to engage in as well, and I'm still on this journey, but I'm really
Mhm,
grateful for, I guess, another component. I'm really, really grateful for leaning into family and friends.
mhm.
One of the things I talk about in my self care, program of services is I really talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness and this
Mm.
idea that not only is your well-being connected to your physical or your emotional self, but
Mhm.
also your social, your intellectual, your environmental, your financial, your
Yeah,
spiritual, these areas of wellness
makes
that
sense.
sometimes we forget about. And so, my ability to be well or to keep it together, get it together, my ability to do that was really
Yeah.
leaning into those other dimensions of wellness. So, my friends, my girlfriends, and my mom
Mhm.
held me down. And I love them always. Love them before, but love them always, and love them now in a really deep way. Um, and so, yeah, those were some of the specific things: medication, exercise, therapy, social connections, and giving myself permission to still have days where things weren't okay. Uh,
Mhm. Yeah.
but um, but it's gotten so much better. So I'm
It
so
gets better.
grateful, and I'm so happy to be able to now pay it forward or continue to pay it forward. Because again, I
Mhm.
was working the whole time. I was still
And
helping
still
people,
working.
still
Wow.
helping people. But yeah,
Well,
thanks for creating the safe space to talk
ye
about that.
thank you. Thank you so much. Because I mean, questions just kinda come, and thank you for being transparent because you really don't have to, but we are happen to be transparent on the Journey to Joy Live, and, you really tapped into a whole 'nother subject that us professionals, we are telling other people, "Take this medication, go get this therapy, go do the journaling, go do the yoga, go do this exercise," but when it comes to ourselves, either we're not taking care of ourselves, we're prioritizing everybody else, including our work, and not ourselves, and when it comes to medication, we might have this kind of stigma ourselves about it, like, "Oh, but that's for
that
the
wa-
patient.
that
I'm
was
not a
that was
patient."
that was me.
Yeah, yeah.
That was me.
So you're normalizing it that, yes, it's okay. I mean, I've been on medication for ADHD, and you've been on medication, and so it's like, it's alright. It's alright to be on medication. It also doesn't mean you have to be on it forever too.
Yeah, that part. I think yeah, my biases were, and it was so interesting that I had to really be honest with myself. Like, what about this did I think was not a good thing? And what I found was I thought it made me weak. All those things we talked about earlier. I
Mhm.
thought it made me weak. I thought it meant that, somehow I wasn't doing all that I needed to do, all that I should have been doing. And the truth is, if I really believe that it's okay to ask for help, that's not just for the other people that I'm supporting and serving, that's also for me too. So,
Yeah, exactly, and you're taking care of yourself so that you can continue to take care of everybody. Because you're awesome doing all the things that you're doing, and, if you can't do it anymore because you haven't been taking care of yourself, then that's all those people, that's that domino effect of all those
yeah,
people that you coulda helped that you can no longer help anymore, so we all literally have to prioritize ourselves in
yes.
order to help everybody else.
Yep. Yep.
Yes. So, I mean, we really tapped into my last question is always about your own personal journey to joy. You've been talking about that, but anything else you wanna add about how your own personal journey to joy has been going?
Yeah. I would say that my journey to joy is in process. I mentioned earlier that I've had my experiences, but I can say today that I'm so grateful to be in a position where my wellness needs and my career needs and my love life needs and
Mhm.
I mean, there's multiple things. I'm under contract for a home. I'm
Ooh.
am doing, kind of doing some reproductive stuff, just
Uh-huh, okay.
feeling all
Okay.
the many things. So I think
Mhm.
Journey to Joy for me has been about walking the walk that I talk to other people, but also being intentional about it. The one thing I haven't been able to say, my definition of self care is that it's the intentional act of nurturing one's physical,
Intention.
spiritual, and emotional self. And the
Yes.
intention that I've been able to
Work.
find in this season, yeah,
Mhm,
it's the intention. So
mhm.
my journey to joy has been an intentional one. And I is one I take very seriously, but I also invite others to join me on this journey. So if you're listening to this, let's all be intentional. Let's do the things. And it's gonna be an
Be
individual thing. What
consistent.
yeah. Yes, I want people to find their rhythm.
Yeah.
What I mean by that,
Whatever
that's
your
kind of
rhythm
like the
is.
in breath, the out breath. The truth is there are gonna be some be consistent at
Mm.
least that you are prioritizing it.
Mhm.
But if in some seasons, I'll give you this last example, and I know this last example for me is that I need to move. Whenever I'm not doing great, movement is so good for me.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but I don't have to be consistent in the sense that it has to be the same type of
Which
movement.
kind? Whether it's
Yeah. So
always running or always yoga, always
yeah,
dancing.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
One season of
Yeah.
my life, I competed in a triathlon. That was the level of movement I needed to have,
Ooh.
right? That was intense.
Hey.
This season of my life, I need low impact. I've
Love
been
it.
I'm doing low impact movement, and that's okay. Giving myself permission to have those different experiences, but I've been intentional about it though. So I danced at a Hawks pregame show recently.
No
Well, when the
way.
basketball season was in, and we were, yeah. So I was doing some dancing,
That's
and that was
awesome.
movement, and it brought me joy. And so I had to be intentional about doing that. So wherever you are, what's your thing that you can that brings you joy and that makes you smile? For me, movement and
Mhm.
dancing is my thing. But I invite everybody, figure out what your thing is, as you're on your journey to joy. But I'm
Woohoo.
I'm excited, and I'm so glad that I had a chance to share my story a little bit today,
Me
and hopefully it helps someone.
too. Oh, it did. It surely helped someone. Somebody's like, "Oh my god, I was meant to be on here." I appreciate you, Dr. Lundy, for coming on Journey to Joy Live. And as everyone heard, we're in episode 99, so that happens to mean that episode 100 is coming up. That's a milestone. That's gonna happen on Thursday, May 29th at 7 p.m. I'll have 3 guests, Dr. Barbara Joy Jones, Dr. Joy Baker, and Dr. Pamela Larde, who is a joy researcher. So it's literally a conversation with joy about joy. So don't miss out. Let's get 100 live viewers watching on all platforms. So we're going to do that. We're going to have a great time because joy can interject any possible parts of our life. And we sat here talking about grief because I think that's one of the toughest things that we can deal with. So I really appreciate you, Dr. Lundy. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been an Enjoy Life production. If you're in a crisis, don't hesitate. Call, text, or chat 988 for immediate support. Please note, this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional treatment. If you're looking for therapy or medication management through Enjoy Life, visit www.drenjoylife.com to request a consultation. I'm licensed in 12 states. I accept Aetna in Georgia, Florida, and Virginia. Be sure to grab your copy of the Enjoy Note to help you on your wellness journey. Also, check out Inspire Joy for the wife, mom, boss to help you balance it all without losing yourself. Better yet, get the full Joy bundle for just $45. Remember, Journey to Joy Live is every Thursday at 7 p.m. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, may you continue to transform stress into joy.